Hyperstition is such an interesting word, and it appears to be real. Hyperstition, coined by, I think he's a philosopher. Ideas or narratives that through their very existence and spread become real or influence reality. Well, what's taken place in the Middle East has been a military operation, but it's been driven by religion that has added the hyperstitiousness to it, as you will see. So we know for sure that Gomer has dominated the world. I'm talking Gomer as England. So this is where British Gomer has set up its flag all over the world. And the last place it invaded was Palestine. And they did it with religion. they didn't go in pretending that they were like Hindus when they went into India. See, the Gomerites act as if they are the representatives of the Bible, which is a Middle Eastern book, which is so interesting and foolish. So here are the steps that Gomer engaged in to take out Palestine and lead to the current desolation, which oddly enough, if you read Luke 21, it says, when Jerusalem is surrounded by armies, know its desolation is near. Flee to the mountains. It'll be trampled upon by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Well, the weaponry designed to take out the Gazans and the Shemites there, because that's biblically who they are, came from Gomer, and Gomer systematically went in and created their own Gomerland in the Middle East, as you'll see in a little bit. So who are these people? Well, when you engage the Bible, you engage three children. Now, the average person who doesn't participate in this thinks it's all nonsense. Well, and it is, except that it's being taken very seriously by these people, because it's the British Crown that has been running the show in the Middle East now since 1915, when it lied to the Shemites, as I'll show you shortly. So the Gomerites, the Americans and Europeans, so the Europeans and the European Americans who descended from the Europeans, and according to the Bible, all Europeans are Japhethites. All Europeans are Japhethites. With England, the people themselves, hard to really say, they're a combination of Japheth according to the Bible, but the crown has always been Gomer. Gomer has always run the show. Gomer, Gentiles. Jerusalem will be trampled on by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Oh, man. So here are the tramplers. Now I'll show you where they came from start to finish here. These are the key players. So she died in 1901, Queen Victoria. And you can see she's of the House of Hanover. Her mother, Saxe-Coburg and Seyfield. This is right here is Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. This is House of Wettin. She is also has influence of the Habsburgs from Bavaria, which was the Austrian family to some degree, and she also has influences of the Glucksburg and Oldenburgs as well. This is Gomer back to before 1000 AD. They are pure German, pure Gomer. So we're going to look at it from the perspective, because Victoria is the only one who's really well aware of. Her husband died like about 40 years before she did, I think it was. So here you can see Tsar Nicholas, and he is 50% Gomer of the Glucksburgs family, I think it is. And then you have Alexandra, who is the granddaughter of Queen Victoria. Did you know that Tsar Nicholas married Queen Victoria's granddaughter? Wow. So they're the Germans of Russia, the Gomers of Russia. And here you have the Germans of Germany, the Gomers of Germany. Did you know that Wilhelm and Nicholas were third cousins? I may have seen fifth cousin, but I'm pretty sure it's third cousins. Third cousins, did you know that? Did you know that Wilhelm and Alexandra were cousins? Queen Victoria had Victoria, who had Wilhelm, and then Queen Victoria had Alice, who had Alexandra. So you can see the Germans of Germany, the Gomers of Germany, and the Gomers of Russia were in charge. And we've got the Gomers of England, the Germans of England. So Wilhelm, Nicholas, Alexandra were all first cousins of George. Isn't that amazing? Now look at him too. When these guys are standing side by side, they look like twin brothers. Twin brothers. Yeah. So here is the other cousin connection. Alexandra, his mother, and Maria, his mother, were sisters. And so he is half German. Here is the Glucksburg house, the German I mentioned before, the Glucksburg. So he is 50% Glucksburg, and the other 50%, whatever the Russian royalty is, or however that worked. And the rest are pure Gomer, pure Gomer. So here was the setup in 1914 when the Gomerite initiation of the current historicist event taking place down in the Middle East is. So you had the Gomerites running England, the Gomerites running Germany. Now you have to realize too that the Habsburg family, these guys were all basically Germans, so it's all the same. So you can see that the powers of Europe were purely under the control of Gomer by the time World War II started. It's best to look at it that way because we're using Bible language. All we're going to do is lay the Bible over this because they've invoked the Bible. So this is what happened in World War I. The Gomerites to the east. So the Western Gomerite British Empire took over. They took out their cousins. In actual fact, well, we know that Wilhelm, he went to the Netherlands. Nicholas, first cousin of George, his wife, first cousin of George, they asked George, can we get asylum in Great Britain? And George said no and let his two first cousins, and his little kid cousins be murdered by the Bolsheviks. That's how disgusting these royals are. It's unbelievable, as if they care about anybody anywhere except for themselves. So we know this world domination was quite vicious, ultimately. It destroyed the Indian subcontinent forever. I mean, thank God the Indian subcontinent is so strong with their deep Vedantic history. But this is the final attack by the Gomerites in England. So it was called Palestine from 500 BC, time of Herodotus, until 1948 AD. So you're looking at over 2,000 years. It was called Palestine. And so here's how it looked with the Byzantine Empire, which is important to understand because it kind of gives us orientation. Because the Byzantine Empire took over in 330, and they were a continuation of the Roma. So it was kind of Greco-Roma before that. And then it was Macedonian, right, the Hellenistic period until 300 BC. And then before that, you had the Persian influences. So no matter what empire you look at, I don't know if the Etruscans have this kind of look, but if you look at the Macedonians, you got this look. If you look at what you'll see in a second, because it was about 1500 or so, shortly after this, when the Ottomans took over. So you can see what we're looking at here. Here's Spain. Here again, here's Greece today. And so you can see the extensiveness of the Ottoman Empire in 1683. And here we can see 1914, which is the key time based upon the Gomerite invasion and the current manifestation of Gog and Magog. Although, first of all, there's no God doing it, and I don't think these people even know they're doing it. They just appropriate everything. That's what. I mean, can't you tell that the British Empire just appropriates everything? They go around, they take over. So we have to overlay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this period of time and we're going to overlay the Bible story because that's what has happened to us. We're going to overlay the Bible story. We're going to make it smaller. You can see, so down below here, you can see Palestina. So Palestine, Syria, Phoenicia. Here's Cyprus. Here's Syria up top. And this is going to be Anatolia or Asia Minor, Turkey. So this is Herodotus 450 BC. This is the Bible telling us who the players are. In red, you've got the Gomerites. So here are the players, Meshech, and Magog, Gomer, Tubal, and one more, Gog, Magog, and Togarmah. So these are the players named in Ezekiel 38 who are going to descend and take over Palestine. Now here you can see yellow, which back then, this is Shem, and it was taken over, of course, this yellow is Ham, and it was replaced by Shem per the books, because Abraham walked from here to here and took over. So this is the setup. So let's back up here, and you can see So we're going to look at 1914. We're going to overlay what the Bible tells us. This is who the Bible players are based upon. Well, these are who the players are based upon the Bible. Now, it's not my story. It's the story that's embraced by 2.4 billion people. And there are more Muslims, right? So I don't know how many, but they believe the Bible story. So half the, 2/3 or half the world believe this story. So you have Japheth and Gomer, the big players from the Japheth line, taking over Europe, Turkey north. You have Ham in Africa, and you have Shem in the Middle East, basically the Arabian Peninsula, to include Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Palestine, all the way down, as well as I think Yemen's over here and then over here as well, whichever countries are over there. They're all Shem, all Shem. Now what you see here, and I'm just putting this here just because it's interesting. I have no idea if this was part of it, but in 1903, under Kaiser Wilhelm, Kaiser and or his father, I think it was Kaiser Wilhelm, started the Berlin, this is Berlin right here, to Baghdad Railway. Now, it seems to me just looking at it, and I may be wrong, it doesn't make any difference, that this could have been a balance of power issue because Gomerite England would have said, wait a second, now Gomer, Germany's going to have access and get Gomer Russia all the oil it possibly needs where all the oil in the world is. We can't have that. That seems to me the reason why, because the odds are people really caring about this place. If they just grew broccoli there and cauliflower, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be quite the coveted domain. So we're going to take that out just to show the players. So these are the players according to the Bible, not according to me. And they've invoked the Bible. So here are the big players that I've shown you before, who they are and what they're going to do. So we know these guys were taken out. So they were taken out and gone. They're out of the picture. Now she was gone too, but she is the queen mother, the queen grandmother who populated the entire European royalty. So now we're sitting here in 1914. So let's just go. We're going to be right now 1914. We got the Kaiser taken out. We got the Romanovs taken out. I killed all my cousins. Actually, I killed my Far Eastern cousins, and I let my other cousin because the Kaiser was allowed to spend time over here in the Netherlands, and he died there. So he was in exile in the Netherlands. But Tsar Nicholas and the others were just brutally murdered by the Bolsheviks. So this is all Japhethite warring up top, and then the outcome was taking out Shem, as you will see. So here's what happened in 1915. In 1915, a representative from Gomer, England, spoke to the Sharif of Mecca, Shemite, and said, if you take out and get rid of these Turks who are also of Japheth, although the 400 years before 1917, there was relative peace. It was called peace in Palestine under the Japheth Turks. But the Shems wanted their land back, and so the Gomerites said, if you take out, this is 1915, it was Colonel MacMahon talking to the Sharif of Mecca in 1915, if you take out the Japhethite Turks, they didn't use that word, I'm just using this word just for orientation, if you take out the Japhethite Turks, Shem, you get your land back. And so that's what Shem did. Shem was victorious and assumed that it would get back control of its land. But that's not what happened. So in 1915, they were victorious. They drove out the Japhethite Turks. Obviously, war tired. They were expecting to be rewarded with their land because they did the job. And what happened? What did British Gomer do? They created Gomerland. Now, up here, I should say, is Syria and Lebanon. That was taken over by the French, but just enough. You're still talking Gomer, right? You're still talking the Japhethites. So Gomerland moves in. This is when Gog and Magog begins with the Sykes-Picot swindle, where the Gomerites of Europe swindled the Shemites of the Middle East based upon the language that we know. We're using actual historical language with the Bible being overlaid on top to show who the players are. So what happened next, of course, is that Gomerland got smaller. Gomerland got smaller, but then there were uprisings like Shem didn't like the people of Shem down here were like, hey, you got to get out. And Gomer, England, of course, didn't like that. So Gomer, England and Gomer, America send their bombs to Gomerland in the Middle East, and that's what happens to the Shemites in the Middle East. Now, interestingly, if you fast forward 100 years, 100 years? Is that right? Yeah, 100 years. 100 years to 2016. Let's see how much Gomerite bombing of Shem is taking place in 2016, Obama's last year in office, and it was mirrored, by the way, of Trump in office. All you do is just vote for a DNR, and the bombs drop, baby. The bombs drop. Here's what happened. Syria, Shem. Iraq, Shem. 24,000 bombs dropped on Shem in 2016. It's been going on for 100 years as of 2016, and is still going on strong today, as we all know. So what does this reflect in terms of the Bible? Because we know that Gomer forced the Bible on the world. So that's the playbook. This is what we are told. So here is the bombing in 2016, mirrored in 2017. This is Ezekiel 38. Gomer with all of its troops will descend upon the land of Shem and is the enemy of God. Isn't that interesting? It's so interesting to me that Gomer appropriated the book in which it is the enemy. I'll make that more clear now because it seems to be confusing for a lot of people. So if you think about the religions of the world back 500 years ago, so you would have had, or even further back, you have the Nordic religions, you've got the Druid religions, and then you have the Bible. So the Gomer religions would have been Druidism and the Nordic religions, where you have the great Thor, who is the protector of the innocent and the promoter of freedom, which of course is not what the Gomerites in control want anyone to be free. So what do they do? What do they do? So as opposed to embracing the beauty of the Druid religion and the Nordic religion, what do they do? What do they do? I mean, the good parts of it. What do they do? They say, nah, we don't want that. We instead want your book. Yeah, we want your book. Now, this is the weird thing. So Japheth and Gomer in the Bible, because that's what they're named in the Bible. Japheth and Gomer, right, are the Europeans that will invade from the north in Ezekiel 38. Gomer, according to the Bible, is the enemy of God and Jesus and is going to hell with Gog and Magog in Revelation 20. So why would these people appropriate a book wherein they are the enemies of the God of that book? Really amazing. So European and American Gomerite Christians have no idea that they are the enemy of Jesus and God in the Bible, and they're going to hell with Gog and Magog in the storybook called the Bible. I mean, that's just like a stunning, stunning thing. Like, why would you then say, okay, and then appropriate it and take it as if it's yours, right? Why do that and then set up your own little Gomerland and then bomb the Shemites? And that's what they have done. This is what has been taking place. Started out in the Crusades, because remember, the Crusades were when the Europeans, the Gomerites, descended upon the Shemites. That was the Crusades. This has been going on for over 1,000 years. It's kind of weird this has been going on for like over 1,000 years, and that's kind of the timeline that the Bible actually has on it. Isn't that interesting? But we're told, so this is, what we're looking at here is over 1,000 years of Gentiles dominating and destroying the lives of Shem. So it's interesting that we see in Luke 21, Jerusalem will be trampled on by the Gentiles, the Gomerites right now who've done the trampling, until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. I wonder if we're entering a hyperstitious event where finally the Gentiles will be stopped from destroying the lives of the Shemites. Of course, it will be hyperstitious, but it will certainly be a good thing nonetheless.